too.
And tell me about this, okay? I had this realization the other day. I mean, whatever, it's nothing new, but you start thinking about things, a little bit differently. Discipline, right? So I started out in Shotokan, Shaolin Kung Fu, things like that. So like I had growing up in the 80s, you did karate or something like that, like that was badass back then. And what is one thing that the parents say that they want their kid to get from martial arts? Discipline, right? Like that, they always talk about, oh, they're learning discipline in jiu-jitsu, right? Like and this is what sets it apart from, say, karate or whatever, like mall karate, especially the martial arts that parents tend to put their kids into nowadays, is there's this type of discipline where, say, my daughter says, I don't want to go train today because she's doing something else fun, right? To her fun, like she's watching TV, or maybe she's dancing or singing, or something, whatever she finds like really fun, she's really into. And then it's like, oh, it's 5:00, time to go. We got to get ready. We got to go to jiu-jitsu. And she says, I don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. I really don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. And then discipline to me is learning to do the things that you don't want to do, do them anyway. And in jiu-jitsu, it's so apparent, because there's so many times where you don't want to train. And I mean, this is like Muay Thai and all the other stuff too, but all the other combat arts, but you don't want to train, you train. You get in there and there's somebody, say a blue belt or a purple belt, for a guy like me, right? Or a Kira, white belt, right? We look at this upper belt and we're like, oh, I don't want to go against them. I know I'm going to lose. I know, too bad. Discipline. You got to go in there. You got to train. You got to do your reps, all that stuff. That's real discipline. It's like you look at these other like mall martial arts, and you go in and you do your kata, and it's easy. It's like, it's not real discipline, even though they're still selling discipline. Real discipline is constantly having to do stuff you don't want to do and still doing it and getting better because of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's other things. There's a level of trust and responsibility associated with practicing jiu-jitsu that is higher than other martial arts too, because, and I don't have a lot of experience with Taekwondo or other things, so I won't speak too much about that. But, just today in class, we were going over a cross-collar choke variation from Mount. And it's like, at some point I explain what's happening to like the kids and the parents that are there overhear this as well. I'm like, yeah, so, one of the kids is like, he asked this maybe after I asked. I don't remember the order of operations, but basically I'm explaining what's actually happening. When you press your wrist up against your opponent's neck, and then you do the same thing on the other side, and then you pull your elbows and sort of bring them into the right position, you're cutting off the circulation in the carotid arteries, and that slows the blood flow to the brain, and that's how the brain breathes. So if the brain can't breathe, it's going to go into shutdown mode and fall asleep. And it's like you can kind of see the look on the parents' faces, because, and they realize this already, but it's like when you say it out loud, they're like, oh, wait a second. Like my kid is like basically strangling other kids' brains.
Yeah.
They're learning how to do that.
How to kill. Class. Really. They're learning how to
Like if you hold it for long enough, the person will die.
Will die.
Or they'll come back really weird. Right. But the kid raised his hand and he's like, hey, quick question, man. So if you're slowing the blood flow to the brain, when you let go, does it like come back, or is it still like slowed down? And I'm like, no, man, it comes back, dude. We have serious problems. We have a lot of homicides in here. If it just was you just turn it off and there's no bringing it back.
Billy's not coming back to training anymore. Billy's in a wheelchair.
Billy got cross-collar choked, and they're still trying to restore oxygen to his brain. But it's they're like, when you explain it in sort of the more medical terms kind of way, it's like, this is a serious thing. So not only are you learning how to do this serious thing, but you're actually, every time you come to class, you're sometimes going with people that, intimidate you or scare you, or you're like, I don't want to lose to them. And they're literally trying to like stop the blood flow to your brain that would make you fall asleep.